Okay, so this is the daf for May 24th, 2025. This is daf 23. Hold on a second. Gotta mark where it ends so I don't forget. Okay, so, and since the Hebrew word tirosh mentioned in the verse is wine, and it is written with regard to it, and you shall eat. This indicates that drinking is an activity included in eating. The Gemara challenges, but perhaps the verse is referring to consuming wine by means of an, what is this word? Anigron. As Rabba Bar Shemuel says, anigron is a stew of beet greens and wine, and oxygron is a stew of all types of cooked vegetables. And so the wine in the verse is not drunk, but eaten. Okay, so rather, Rabbi Aha Bar Yaakov said, cite from here a verse written with regard to money with which one is redeemed second tithe. And you shall bestow the money for whatsoever your soul desires, for oxen and for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever your soul asks of you. And you shall eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household. Deuteronomy 14:26. The Hebrew word yain, mentioned in the verse as wine, and it is written, and you shall eat. The Gemara challenges, but perhaps this verse is also referring to consuming wine by means of a nigron. Gemara rejects this. Strong drink is written in the verse, referring to something intoxicating, and wine mixed into a stew is not intoxicating. The Gemara challenges, but perhaps the intoxicating substance referred to in the verse is pressed figs from Keilah, as it is taught in a Braita. A priest who ate pressed figs from Keilah, or drunk honey or milk, and then entered the temple and performed the sacrificial rites is liable for violating the prohibition against conducting temple service while intoxicated. Rather, one derives the meaning of strong drink in this verse by means of a verbal analogy from the verse about a Nazirite. Quote, he shall abstain from wine and strong drink. He shall drink no vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink. Neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat fresh grapes or dried. Numbers 6:3. Just as there, the strong drink that is forbidden to the Nazirite is referring to a type of wine, so too here the verse is referring to wine. Rava said, we learn in the Mishnah as well that drinking is included in eating. The Mishnah teaches, if one said, on my oath I will not eat, and then he ate and drank, he's liable to bring only one offering. Granted, if you say that drinking is included in eating, that is why it was necessary for the Tana to teach us that he is liable to bring only one offering. But if you say that drinking is not included in eating, there is no reason for the Tana to teach that it is only one violation. If one says, on my oath I will not eat, and he ate and performed some kind of labor, would it be necessary to teach us that the person is liable to bring only one offering? He never took an oath prohibiting labor. Abaye said to him, what rather is your Abaye said to him, what rather is your conclusion that drinking is included in eating? Say the latter clause of the Mishnah. If he said, on my oath I will not eat and I will not drink, and then he ate and drank, he is liable to bring two offerings. According to you, Rava, once he said, I will not eat, drinking became forbidden to him. So when he said, I will not drink, why is he rendered liable to bring a separate offering? If he said, I will not drink, 2 times, would he be liable to bring 2 offerings? Rava said to him, there in the Mishnah, it is actually a case where he said, I will not drink, and then said, I will not eat. Although it is so that drinking is included in eating, it is not so that eating is included in drinking. And the oath not to drink went into effect independently of the oath not to eat. Therefore, he is liable to bring 2 offerings. Gemara asked, but according to this, if he said, on my oath I will not eat, and I will not drink, and he then ate and drank, what is the halacha? Is it that he is liable to bring only 1 offering? If that is so, rather than teaching in the first clause of the Mishnah that one who said, on my oath I will not eat, and then ate and drank, is liable to bring only 1 offering. Let the Tana teach the following. If one says, on my oath I will not eat, and I will not drink, and he ate and he drank, he is liable to bring only 1 offering. From that ruling, it could be concluded that when one takes an oath, I will not eat alone, all the more so is he liable to bring only 1 offering. Rather, the Mishnah actually is as it is taught, that one who took an oath not to eat and drink, and then ate and drank, is liable to bring 2 offerings, even though drinking is included in eating. And here it is different. Since he said, I will not eat, and then said, I will not drink, he revealed his intention that eating that he stated first is eating alone and does not include drinking. Rav Ashi said, the Mishnah is also precisely formulated in accordance with the opinion of Shemuel that drinking is included in eating. It teaches, if he said, on my oath I will not eat, and he ate foods that are inedible or drank liquids that are not potable, he is exempt. But if those liquids were fit for consumption, he would be liable. And why? The Mishnah teaches that he took an oath saying, on my oath I will not eat, without mentioning drinking, which indicates that drinking is included in eating. So I want to point out, it's just, the Torah is so, what we learn in this type of stuff is that the Torah is so specific on language. And if it's so specific on language here, how much more so, like everything in life, we have to be very scrutinizing of. The Gemara rejects this. Perhaps the Mishnah is referring to a case where he said both, on my oath I will not eat, and on my oath I will not drink. The Mishnah did not spell out the second oath because its primary interest was in teaching that eating or drinking, that which is inedible or not potable, is not considered eating or drinking. The Mishnah teaches that if one said, on my oath I will not eat, and then he ate wheat bread and barley bread and spelt bread, he is liable only to bring only one offering. If he said, on my oath I will not eat wheat bread or barley bread or spelt bread, and then he ate all of them, he is liable to bring an offering for each one. The Gemara challenges, but perhaps when he details each type of bread, it comes to ensure that he exempts himself from having other foods included in the oath, not to indicate that each type of bread is a separate oath. The Gemara answers, if that was his intention, then he could have just said wheat, barley, and spelt, without mentioning bread each time. From the fact that he mentioned bread each time, it can be understood that his intention was that each be considered a separate oath. The Gemara rejects this, but if he did not mention bread, perhaps his oath could be interpreted to prohibit chewing whole kernels of these grains, and he consequently mentioned bread to limit the oath to bread. The Gemara suggests, if his intention was to ensure that his oath does not extend to other foods, he could have just said bread made from wheat or barley or spelt. In that way, his oath would be limited to just bread. The Gemara rejects this. If he had said it that way, perhaps his oath could be interpreted to prohibit him from eating wheat bread and from chewing whole kernels of barley or spelt. The Gemara suggests, if his intention was to ensure that his oath does not extend to other foods, he could have just said bread made from wheat and from barley and from spelt, thereby limiting his oath to types of bread. The Gemara rejects this, but if he had said it that way, perhaps his oath could be interpreted to prohibit only bread made from a mixture of all these grains. The Gemara suggests, if the specification in the Mishnah serves merely to ensure that his oath does not extend to other foods, have him say bread made from wheat, and so from barley, and so from spelt. Why do I need to repeat bread, bread each time? Conclude from it that the point of repeating the word bread each time is to individuate each statement as a separate oath. The Mishnah teaches, if he said, on my oath I will not drink, and then he drank several kinds of liquids, he is liable to bring only one offering. If he says, on my oath I will not drink wine, or oil, or honey, and he drank all of them, he is liable to bring an offering for each and every one. The Gemara asks, granted, there in the case of the bread, the ruling of the Mishnah is understood, as you said, that the word bread before barley and the word bread before spelt are superfluous and serve to extend his liability so that each is considered an independent oath. But here, where there is no superfluous language, what was there to say? Perhaps the oath comes to ensure that he exempts himself so that the oath does not extend to other liquids. Since that is a possibility, he should not be liable for breaking 3 separate oaths when he drank all 3 liquids. Rav Papa said, we are dealing here with a situation where all 3 liquids are placed before him. Under the circumstances, if he merely wished to indicate that his oath is limited to these liquids, he could have said, on my oath I will not drink these. Since he instead specified the liquids in the oath, it was in order to indicate that each should be considered a separate oath. The Gemara challenges, but had he said, I will not drink these, perhaps his oath would be interpreted as meaning, it is these liquids, which are before me right now, that I will not drink, but I will drink other wine, oil, and honey. The Gemara answers, rather, if he merely wished to indicate that his oath is limited to these types of liquids, it would be a case where he said, on my oath I will not drink liquids such as these. The Gemara challenges, had he said it that way, perhaps it could be interpreted as referring to the volume of the liquids. I will not drink liquids such as these, but I will drink less than this or more than this. The Gemara answers, rather, if he merely wished to indicate that his oath is limited to these types of liquids, it is a case where he said, on my oath I will not drink from these types of liquids. The Gemara challenges, but had he said it that way, perhaps his oath would be interpreted to mean, I will not drink these types of liquids in general, but I will drink these particular liquids in front of me. The Gemara suggests, if the point of the specification of the liquids in the Mishnah was merely to ensure that his oath does not extend to other liquids, have him say, on my oath I will not drink these liquids of their types. I will not drink these in liquids of their types. Since he instead specified wine, oil, and honey, one may conclude that his intention was to individuate each liquid as a separate oath. Rav Acha, son of Rav Ika, said, we're dealing with a case in which another is importuning him to drink, as he said to him, come, drink wine and oil and honey with me. If he wanted him to desist, he should have said, on my oath I will not drink with you. Under these circumstances, why do I need him to specify wine and oil and honey? The specification of the liquid serves to indicate his intention to render himself liable for each and every one. We learned in a Mishnah elsewhere, so 36b, with regard to an oath concerning a deposit, if one says to his Bavli, give me my wheat, barley, and spelt that are in possession, and the Bavli lies and says, on my oath, nothing of yours is in my possession, he is liable to bring only one guilt offering. But if the Bavli says, on my oath, I did not have in my possession any wheat, barley, or spelt that belonged to you, he is liable to bring a separate offering for each and every one. Rabbi Yochanan says, with regard to that Mishnah, that he is liable even if the value of all three species combines to amount to as little as one peruta, or one of the smallest coins. Rav Acha and Ravina disagree with regard to this. One said, when the Bavli says, on my oath I will not have in my possession any wheat, barley, or spelt that belong to you, he is liable to bring a guilt offering only for violating the specific oaths for individual types of grain, and he is not liable for violating a general oath that he does not have anything in his possession. Consequently, Rabbi Yochanan's statement that the different types of grains can be combined to amount to one peruta is referring only to the oath in the first clause of the Mishnah where he did not specify the grains. And one said he is also liable for violating a general oath, and in the latter clause in the Mishnah he is liable for violating 4 oaths. One general oath that he does not have anything in his possession, and 3 specific oaths for each, one for each type of grain. Consequently, Rabbi Yochanan's statement applies also to where he specifies the grains, and he is liable to bring one offering even when all 3 species combined to amount to only 1 peruta. The Gemara asks, here in the case of one who takes an oath that he will not eat wheat bread, barley bread, or spelt bread, what is the halacha? Is there a dispute as to whether he is considered to have taken a general oath alongside the specified oaths? Rava said, how can these cases be compared? There, in the case of an oath of a deposit, he is liable for the general oath and for the specific oath, since if a Bavli takes an oath denying that he is in possession of a deposit and then takes an oath to the same effect, he is liable for taking 2 false oaths on a deposit. Here, with regard to an oath to prohibit oneself from eating, if it enters your mind that he is bound by a general oath, why would he be liable for the specific oaths? If he is already under an oath due to the general oath, and an oath cannot take effect when the matter it prohibits is already forbidden by another oath. The Mishnah teaches that if one said, on my oath I will not eat, and he ate foods that are inedible, he is exempt. If he said, on my oath I will not eat, and then he ate the meat of unslaughtered carcasses, he is liable. The Gemara asks, if this Mishnah itself is difficult, you said that if one said, on my oath I will not eat, and he ate foods that are inedible, or drank liquids that are not potable, he is exempt. And then the Mishnah teaches that if one says, on my oath I will not eat, and then he ate the meat of unslaughtered carcasses, or Torah-Centered, repugnant creatures, or creeping animals, he is liable. What is different about the first clause, that he is exempt, and what is different about the latter clause, that he is liable? Non-kosher animals are also unfit to be eaten. The Gemara answers, this is not difficult. The first clause is where he took an oath not to eat anything, not to eat without specifying what is included in it. Presumably, his oath did not include items that are not ordinarily eaten. And the latter clause is a case where he specifies what it is he will not eat, that is, unslaughtered carcasses, and nevertheless he eats them. The Gemara asks, you may also raise a difficulty with regard to the case where he specifies that he will not eat non-kosher items. Why? He is under oath from Mount Sinai, and an oath does not take effect to prohibit that which is already forbidden. Rav and Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan all say that this is a case where he incorporates into the oath that he will not eat some permitted items along with a statement concerning the forbidden items. Since the oath takes effect with regard to the permitted items, it extends also to the forbidden ones, too. And Reish Lakish says, you find that one is liable for eating non-kosher food as a result of an oath only if it is an oath where he specifies that it includes a half measure, and in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, meaning the majority, that one is not liable for eating a half measure unless it is specified in the oath. Since eating a half measure is not prohibited by Torah law, the oath takes effect. Alternatively, you find that one is liable if he took an oath without specifying the oath prohibits less than the usual measure. And in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who says that a person renders himself prohibited from eating any amount by taking an oath not to eat. The Gemara asks, granted, it is understood why Rabbi Yochanan did not say like Reish Lakish as he interprets the Mishnah so that it is in accordance with the opinion of everyone. But what is the reason that Reish Lakish does not say like the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan? The Gemara answers, Reish Lakish could say to you, when we say that a more inclusive prohibition, which adds additional aspects to the prohibition of the same individual, can take effect where there already is a prohibition in place, it is with regard to a prohibition that occurs on its own, like the prohibition against eating on Yom Kippur, which is more inclusive than the prohibition against eating non-kosher food, and therefore takes effect. But with regard to a prohibition that occurs by the act of a person himself, that is an oath or a vow, we do not say that because it is more inclusive, it can take effect also with regard to items that are already forbidden by Torah law. The Gemara asks, granted, according to Reish Lakish, who understands the Mishnah to be dealing with a case of one who took an oath about less than a full measure, it is due to this reason that Rabbi Shimon deems him exempt. One who takes an oath prohibiting himself from eating non-kosher food, as it is taught in Braita, Rabbi Shimon says, any amount is sufficient to render one liable to receive lashes. And the sages stated, the measure of an olive bulk to determine only liability to bring an offering. According to Reish Lakish, Rabbi Shimon holds that one is already under oath from Mount Sinai, even with regard to less than a full measure, and for that reason, the oath does not take effect. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, who understands the Mishnah to be referring to an oath that includes erstwhile permitted items, what is the reason that Rabbi Shimon deems one exempt from bringing an offering for breaking his oath not to eat non-kosher food? So the Gemara asks, isn't the reason that the first Tana holds that the individual is liable for violating his oath only due to the fact that the oath generates a more inclusive prohibition? In this matter, Rabbi Shimon conforms to his standard line of reasoning in that he does not hold that a more inclusive prohibition takes effect where a pre-existing prohibition is in place. This is in accordance with that which is taught in Braita. Rabbi Shimon says, one who eats non-kosher meat on Yom Kippur is exempt from bringing an offering for eating on Yom Kippur, despite the fact that the prohibition against eating on Yom Kippur is more inclusive prohibition than that of eating non-kosher meat, as on that day one may not eat anything. From the verse, quote, or if anyone take an oath clearly with his lips to do evil or to do good, Leviticus 5:4. The sages drive that one is liable to bring an offering for an oath on an utterance only when the oath is such that it could be inverted from the positive to the negative or vice versa. For example, one is liable for violating an oath to eat because one can also take an oath not to eat. The Gemara asks, granted, according to the opinion of Reish Lakish, you find a case where the oath can be negative or positive. Therefore, one is liable according to the rabbis when he takes an oath that he will eat any amount, since he could also take an oath that he will not eat any amount. But according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, granted that you can find a case of a negative oath, as the oath not to eat non-kosher animals takes effect when it includes other erstwhile permitted items. But how can you find a positive version of this oath? An oath to eat non-kosher animals cannot take effect, as eating non-kosher animals is prohibited by Torah law. So rather, do not distinguish between the former and the latter clauses of the Mishnah based on whether he specifies what he is eating. In both cases, he takes an oath not to eat without specifying. In a case where he eats something inedible, he is exempt. In accordance with that which Rava says, as Rava says that if one said, on my oath I will not eat, and he ate dirt, he is exempt. Since eating an inedible substance is not considered to be eating, eating non-kosher meat is considered to be eating. For that reason, the latter clause of the Mishnah states that one is liable for doing so if he took an oath not to eat. The oath takes effect with regard to non-kosher items because, as Rabbi Yochanan noted, it includes items that would otherwise be permitted. Rav Mari said, we learn in the Mishnah 22b as well that eating non-kosher food is considered eating as if one said, "It is konam for my wife to derive benefit from me if I ate today," and he had eaten carcasses or trephot, repugnant creatures or creeping animals, his wife is prohibited from deriving benefit from him. The Gemara asks, how can these cases be compared? There, since he initially ate the forbidden item and only then took an oath saying that he did not eat. And that's the end of Daf 24. So thanks for watching.